Hello there, I'm Matthew Gardner and welcome to this week's episode of Mondays with Matthew. Today I'm going to be talking about the June report on US existing home sales that was released by the National Association of Realtors last week. I'm also going to give you the first view of my updated US housing forecast for 2020. So let's get straight to it. Starting out with sales. Well, this chart shows the seasonally adjusted annual rate for transactions. And with a few exceptions in 2013, again in 2016, the trend has been very positive. Well, it was, until COVID-19 hit. And you can clearly see the massive drop in sales that occurred in April and again in May. But we saw an equally significant snap back in June, with total sales rising to an annual rate of 4.72 million units. And that's up from 3.91 million back in May. But you see, it's not that easy to see here, so let's look at it in a slightly different way. Now here you see the same data, but I've tightened up the time frame and I've also changed it to show the 12-month percentage change in the number of sales. Now, the market slowed significantly in March, you can see that, but April and May were where we truly saw sales dry up. But take a look at June. Can you see a V? Annualized sales growth, it's still down by 11.3%, but it's far better than it was. And month over month, we saw a 21% jump in sales. And that's the biggest monthly increase since NAR started collecting the data all the way back in 1968. And when we look at sales by price range, well, you can see the high-end market took a major hit in May, but there were significant drops across all price ranges. But look at June. The contraction was far less pronounced, and we actually saw transactions grow in that sweet spot between $250,000 and $500,000. And we're also getting closer to seeing sales between $500,000 and $750,000 turning positive too. Well, with the first half of the year behind us, I've now updated my forecast for existing home sales in 2020, and you are the first ones to see it. So I guess that you can take this forecast one of two ways. Either you can look at it and say, ugh, we're still going backwards. Or you can take the glass half full attitude and say, yes, this is pretty good. People are still continuing to buy and sell houses. Of course, the second quarter was ugly, with sales tracking at an annual rate of just over 4.3 million units, but it could have been so much worse. I believe that sales will continue to pick up as we move through the second half of the year, but they will still end up down by around 6.4% from 2019 levels. COVID-19 has impacted sales, the numbers don't lie. However, what we need to consider is what the real reason for the drop in sales actually was. And you can go down, again, one of two roads here. You can either believe that it's a lack of demand, with buyers not going ahead because they're worried about keeping their jobs, or maybe they're worried that the economy will take longer to recover than is currently forecast. Or you can say that although there was some pullback from the demand side of the equation, the biggest culprit was and is supply. And if you're thinking that it's a supply side issue rather than a demand side problem, well done. You're absolutely right. 20 years of data here, and it shows current listing activity is not just at a 2-decade low, but I'll tell you that it's also at the lowest level in a generation. In June, there were just 1.5 million homes for sale in America. Now, I look back over the data going back to 1999, and I couldn't find a single year with a lower inventory level in the month of June than we saw last month. And again, when we look at it a little differently, the 12-month change in listings shows a market that's even tighter than we saw back in 2017. And I remember all of you moaning about how bad it was then and there was nothing to buy. Well, it's even worse now. Sales were hit because there were fewer buyers, of course, but of greater consequence is the fact that there was nothing to buy. Now, even though inventory was so low, 510,000 homes closed in June. Now that's the greatest number of closings in a month since last August. Now let's take a look at sale prices and what a difference 1 month makes. Sale prices dropped in April and in May, but bumped back in June. However, I really don't like looking at price shifts on a monthly grain. The data is simply, well, it's just too busy. So I concentrate on year-over-year price changes. And as you can see here, even through the pandemic, annual US home price growth never turned negative. Even if the monthly drop in May led to the annual rate coming in at its lowest level, well, that we saw, or we have seen, since we came out of the recession in 2012. However, June did show a solid rebound, but at 3.5%, it's still the lowest pace of price growth that we've seen in over a year. And here it is. This is my current forecast for price appreciation in 2020. I'm showing prices rising by 4.3% this year. Now, I will tell you something. When I ran the model and this number came out, even I was a little surprised at how high it was. Of course, when this happens, the first thing that any of us economists do is to take a look at what everyone else is saying. When I looked at the most recent forecast from other analysts, well, I was actually pleasantly surprised to see that they were pretty much in the same ballpark. National Association of Realtors, they're saying 3.6%. Mortgage Bankers Association, they're saying 4%. Fannie Mae matching me at 4.3. Now, there was an outlier, CoreLogix. They're saying we will see a 6+% drop in home prices, but I'm afraid I just don't see it. And finally, I want to touch briefly on different product types. These charts show the breakout of listings by housing type, single family and multifamily, again looking at the year-over-year change. And what I found interesting here was that we really didn't see much improvement in the number of single family homes for sale, but we did see an increase in the multifamily arena. Now, whether this is a function of COVID-19 concerns about living close to other people, or just because most multifamily units are in denser, more urban markets, well, that's unclear today. However, I will be watching to see if this is a trend that will continue, and I'll be sure to report back to you if there's anything interesting in that arena. Now, of course, nobody can deny that we are still in very unique times, and significant uncertainty remains. But housing is performing, I would argue, remarkably well. And as I have said to you over the last few months, I stand by my position that housing will lead us out of the current economic contraction. Sales will continue to recover in most markets, and I think they're only going to be held back by a lack of supply. Of course, there will be some who say that we've yet to see the tsunami of foreclosed homes that is guaranteed to happen. Well, again, I'm saying the same thing I've told you for several months now, and that is forbearance, and the forbearance program is working. Homeowners who aren't working now because of COVID-19, and if they've been laid off and they enter the forbearance program, well, I honestly believe that a vast majority of them will be back at work again before the term of their forbearance programs expires. So I hope that you found this week's video of interest. And as always, if you have any thoughts about this particular subject, or if you've got a question you'd like me to talk about, I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, take care out there, stay safe, and I hope that you'll join me again next week. Bye now.